a long time, I really hesitated with making this video about this specific topic. One of the reasons why it took so long for me to get this video out is because the process in which I went through to go and decide to do the complete opposite of what I've known for almost my whole life has not been an easy topic, and I also didn't feel obligated to discuss it with people who don't even talk to me on a weekly basis. And that's just being real. I haven't even sat down and talked with some of my family about why I decided to convert or why I decided to wear the hijab. And those are two separate conversations. Even though they do intertwine, those are two very different conversations, because there's one thing to accept Islam into your life. There's a whole different journey of accepting Islam and then being visibly Muslim as a Black woman. And I don't care if anybody gets tired of me speaking of adding the Black to every situation, not only being a woman but a Black woman, not only being a Black woman but a Black Muslim woman. There's layers to it. I honestly didn't even think that I was gonna wear the hijab. When I finally made the decision that I was okay, this makes sense. I did not think that I was gonna wear the hijab. I would tell people, yeah, no, I'm not gonna do all of that, but I did. And so today I'm going to be talking about how I came to that decision, how it's been going for me, because I am almost at a year that I have been wearing the hijab. SubhanAllah. Yeah, this is just me, no notes, no microphone, just going in, just brains and all. If you don't already know, I made a modesty journey video a couple of months back. Women who are usually in their late 20s, early 30s usually enter that space of life anyway, of where they consider dressing more modestly or changing up their style because they're stepping into their career, they have families, etc. So things start to change because you really start, you're grown now. So it was a dark and stormy night. No, I'm playing. It was not a dark and stormy night. Even though a lot of people do end up finding Islam when they are in very, very life-threatening situations. I was fortunate enough that I was not going through a life situation. Actually, yes, I was. I was not going through a life-threatening situation, but I was going through life. But who's not going through life? But anyway, I have always had curiosity about the theories of religion, but I have never really took it upon myself to study theology because I was already knees deep in school. I'm still in school. I grew up in the South. I was born in California. I grew up in the South. South is called the Bible Belt. There is a very strong Christian population there. So it's heavily influences. In the South, you'll see these big mega churches, going to church on Sundays, even Sunday best culture is a thing in the South. My great-grandfather was actually a pastor. We constantly went to church on Sunday. Always went to church on Sunday. When I was younger, I had to wear the stockings with the ruffles on the skirts and the frilly little dresses and the little click-clack shoes. And I liked my click-clack shoes. I did not like wearing those tights because I always had a rip in them. Once I became a teenager, things were a little bit more lax. Once I became a teenager, I feel like I started to think about things differently, especially in my later teens. I was just I noticed that there was a lot of contradictions that did not make sense to me within that's taught within Christianity, and it was so confusing. But When I went off to school, I was really young. I was 17 when I started undergrad, and I eventually turned 18 pretty soon afterwards, and I still made it a mission to go to church on Sundays. Me and my friends, we tried our best to make it to church on Sundays, but we were not present. Like, we were not really absorbing anything, because like we would literally go out on Saturday. We would go out on Friday, Saturday, and then go to church on Sunday. And if we felt like we would go out on Sunday, like I was going out a lot. I was going out so much that I got tired of going out maybe my junior year. I was like, you would catch me outside maybe occasionally. Like I was not allowed to do much. And I mean, rightfully so. My mom and my stepdad really tried to make sure that I was running with the right crowds and not in the wrong spaces, etc. But I felt like I was under surveillance like a lot. So as soon as I had that opportunity to be free and be a little butterfly, man, I was flying everywhere. I was going everywhere, always trying to implement God into my life, but I could never be consistent, and eventually I would fall off. And that even happened later in life after I had my son. I had my son while I was still in undergrad, and that's another journey in itself. Like, once you have a baby, it really changes your perspective it really changes your perspective on life, and it just makes you grow up. I really craved that relationship with God. I really wanted it. Like, it would be consistent for a little bit, but not like super close. And I would always hear people say like, oh, you have to listen to God. You have to follow God's voice. And I'm like, bro, like, I don't hear anything. I don't know what y'all are talking about. Like, you say follow God's voice, but I don't hear anything. I hear myself talking. These are my thoughts. These are my self-conscious, and I can't trust myself. So how am I supposed to follow what God wants for me if I don't hear his voice? It's like, I would ask deeper questions than that. I just would never really get a straightforward answer. When I tell you that I tried multiple times, I did. I even got rebaptized when I decided to go to a different church. I went through a lot of a lot of hard life experiences in undergrad, and so after I became a mother, I decided to go and check out a new church. I knew I wanted something more intimate. I knew being in a big church, I was getting tired of being in the big mega churches, and I'm like, how am I supposed to ask the preacher a question and I'm sitting, like, it feels like we're in a basketball stadium. And I mean, the theatrics, the lights, I mean, it's crazy. Like, this is a show, and everything was so focused on the show instead of actually like the connection not clicking. And yes, every now and then, like, I would be like, okay, yeah, that was a good message, but it felt like the way that me in the church felt like it was like a PRN, like, okay, I'm taking it as needed. It felt like Benadryl, you know, like allergy medicine. When, you know, you start to feel a little flare up, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess, you know, let me go ahead and take my medicine, and then, all right, I'm good. Let me go back to my life. And that's the reason why I could not be consistent, is because I could not take on like that lifestyle. And a lot of the lifestyle just was not matching. It just was not making sense to me. I had joined sister circles so I could be closer to the women in the church, and it just felt like I just really always felt like the black sheep. I felt like when I shared my experiences and my questions and my thoughts, it felt like I was the only one thinking on a different perspective. It felt like I was the only one being realistic with my struggles. I read that scripture and it didn't make me feel better. And I'm just being honest, and I'm not trying to offend anyone, but I'm just talking about my personal experience. And I think that a lot of people also can relate to this too. So I entered this new church and I really liked the environment, how it was a little bit more relaxed. But it was some contradictions there too. And I don't want to go too deep into it, because I know once I go too deep into it, I already know, like, there are some people out there that will, like, I'm not even talking about them specifically, but people get really offended when you start telling the truth. So I'm gonna keep it light. I got baptized and I was really happy, and I thought that I was gonna become brand new, and I was gonna have a closer relationship. And after I had got baptized, I was driving pretty far to go to this church to make it there on Sundays so I could study. And a lot of the books I noticed were authored by the preacher. And and even though he was very, like, he has like multiple degrees, and I honored the mix that he brought in, like the psychology of things with like theology as well. And he also would, you know, talk about, you know, the plurality in different religions as well, and I really enjoyed that. I started going through life more, and I felt like the support that I had in the church was like very surface level. Like, I was going through real life problems, like real life. I wasn't here for the fluff and like, oh, let me get, like, one thing about me, like, I'm a realistic person. Like, I'm not like gonna just like, oh, let me just, you know, smile. I was going through too much to fake that I was happy anymore. And I got tired of faking like I was happy. I got tired of being in an environment that made me feel like I had to perform. I kind of felt like a little shameful, because like on the outside, I mean, looking like around me, it seemed like everybody had such a close relationship with God, and here I am like, well, why don't I feel that way? Why am I not shouting? Why am I not speaking in tongues? Why am I? And I would ask those questions like, why is it not happening to me? Why am I not catching the Holy Ghost? Why am I not like fainting in church? Like, why am I not like boo-hoo crying? When they say like you get saved, why do I not feel saved? Why am I still struggling in life if I'm saved? Take that with which you will. And like I said, I am talking about my experience. And if that's not your experience, and if this is offending you, please, by all means, go to the next video. And so I started joining church from home. And I put on different pastors and preachers, etc., and it would give me a word for the moment. And I'd be like, oh yeah, that was good. And I'd be cleaning up my house, and it felt good to just be in my own safe space and not have to go out into a congregation or environment that I feel like I had to just kind of put on a brave face for when I wasn't feeling that way. It felt safer to do that, but even in that, like, there was just no sense of community. I just really strayed away from it all. Just like with, you know, with PRN medicine, as needed medicine, if you get to a point where you're pretty, you know, decent, other things in life are kind of, you know, fulfilling you or making it seem like they're fulfilling you, you're gonna stop using that medicine. So I stopped going to church. I stopped, like, every once in a while I would like listen to like motivational like lecture or whatever, but I just completely stopped. And I was like, you know what, like, I'm going through too much stuff. I'm about to live my life. I mean, for real, like, YOLO, for real. I did, and I have lived a very full life, and I do not regret anything. I know some, like, I don't regret anything. I think everything that I went through has made me a better person. I think everything that I've like experienced has been very interesting and like a movie. Like, I feel like my life has been like very colorful, very vivid, and but in the midst of me finding out who I was, I started to have deeper thoughts. When you turn 25, your brain fully develops and you start thinking about life differently, and you start thinking more existentially instead of like individually, like, oh, I want to do this and I want to be a lawyer and I want to do this. You start thinking about love and community and a higher power, and you just kind of start going on this spiritual journey unintentionally. And it really is up to you whether you decide to be curious about these questions that you're starting to ask. And the way that you enter a spiritual journey is those deep questions that you really can't talk to everyone about because they might not get it. Like the deep questions about, like, where do we go after we die? Do you believe in a higher power? How do you think the earth was made? And like really deep diving into like the sciences and the histories and like mind-blowing questions. Not until like you decide to not be scared and deep dive and like explore that answer, that's when you start going into a spiritual journey. I started that journey when I moved to California. People ask me like, why'd you move to California? I don't know, I just moved to California. Like, I don't know how deep this conversation is about to get, but sometimes I can get really deep and I might lose you. But if you're with me, then you're with me. I also was having deep conversations with people. I'm grateful for every person that I encountered, every friend that I make, every friend that I lost, every family member I talked to that would talk to me on that frequency, on that level. It really, my spirituality led me to the person I am today. So once I started to answer those questions, like, I figured out, like, oh, okay, I would classify myself as a spiritual person. I did not classify myself as a religious person. Didn't take it upon myself, okay, let me go explore another religion. I was like, maybe religion is just not for me. I didn't officially say it, but like, I wasn't really calling myself a Christian, but I always believed in God and I believed in Jesus, but there was just contradiction in the belief that I just could not adhere to. Wow, like, I can talk to God in a different way than I've been taught. I feel like I started to become that person that was always looking for a sign. As soon as I found out that God doesn't directly talk to you by just sounding like Mufasa, like, that's how I thought. Like, when I was younger, I thought that's how God was supposed to come and talk to you. He's just supposed to come over the clouds and just say,
Simba, you have forgotten me.
No. How could I?
You have forgotten who you are.
I thought that God was supposed to sound like Morgan Freeman or something. Like, I don't know. But when I found out that God doesn't talk to you like that, I mean, maybe he talks to somebody else like that, but not me. I can relate to that. It shows up in the way that we understand. And for me, the way that I experience God is that God was showing up through like different experiences, different like conversations. Once you get out of that mindset that you think that things are just coincidental, things are not just coincidental. Those things that pop up as a coincidence, that's God. And once I learned that, I became more and more interested in spirituality. Because even though being a spiritual person, feeling like that type of connection on a different wavelength is powerful, there's no structure in it. And ultimately, like, you start to feel lost. And I think that, I mean, I never really attributed my higher power to the universe, because the universe did not make itself. I don't call Allah a source. The source is God. I moved to LA, and let me tell you something. I did not move to LA to convert. I moved, like, do you really think that I moved to LA so I could start wearing the hijab? Nobody does that. People honestly move to Los Angeles and lose their soul. I feel like I found my soul. I feel like I found myself. I feel, while in the midst of a deep pool where everyone was losing their selves in like these various different industries that are in LA, and the pop culture and the flashy things, like everything that's going on in LA, I feel like I finally found myself. I made friends really quickly. I was really happy that, like, my dating life was amazing. Like, I was like, oh, they like your girl out here. I mean, I had a cute apartment. I was like, my style was coming up, you know. I was, you know, wearing the cute little outfits. I was going to the cute little day parties. My nails were fly. Like, my hair was always done. I'm not even gonna lie. I just gotta be real with y'all. Like, I just think, like, I just want y'all to know where I'm coming from. I want y'all to know where I'm coming from and what I gave up. I will go outside, maybe for one weekend, maybe a Saturday and a Sunday. I'd have a date next week. People also like me because I had a great personality. I was always getting invited to things. I would be at somebody's wedding here, then I'll be at somebody's event there, then I'll be, oh, let's go to this rooftop, let's meet this. Like, I was meeting so many cool people. I was like, wow, there's a lot of cool people in LA. Loved it. It was such a vibe. I mean, LA is still a vibe. And I was like, yeah, this is the life for me. This is where I'm supposed to be. I just felt like it fit who I was much more than where I was living before in Texas. And I loved it. I wasn't really that type of girl that was trying to like do the most, or like trying to keep up with whoever. Like, I was just honestly just being me, and I just wanted to be a fly girl. That's all I wanted to do. Oh, in the midst of that, like, you do start to think about things a little differently. I feel like nobody really knew how great my personality was, knew how smart I was, knew like how caring I was, and it just felt like nobody was seeing me for me. It felt like everybody was like even some girlfriends, not even just in LA, but also in Houston too. It just felt like some people only wanted me around because I looked a certain way. So I felt that in my dating experience. I felt that with some of my friends, and I have some real friends to today, but I've also come across like some girls that either like I'm not friends with anymore, or they weren't really my friends, they were acquaintances or whatever. Like, but I know that I have like a golden personality, and the way that I was constantly being put into like these groups.
Girl, your hair cute. Thank you. You in here by yourself? Yeah. Look, you bad, I'm bad, my homegirl's bad. You need to come join us so we can all be bad together. Okay, I'm down. Alright, we about to go over here to this dude's section. He lame, but he be spending money. And he be buying everybody drinks. Oh, baby, where he at?
I was constantly like being approached and talked to, and like everything just felt so surface. I'm like, bro, you're not really my friend. You don't even hear what I'm saying because you won't keep your eyes up here. I was getting so tired of like not being able to build a tribe. Not a huge group of friends, but like a group of friends where we all know each other, we all interact, we all got each other's back. It feels like a family because my family is not here. More stuff started happening to me, and I was just like, bro, did I deserve this? And I know I didn't deserve like some of the things that I kept going through, or the things that people did to me or would say to me. I wanted to get out of the streets. I was like, oh my God, it's ghetto out here. It's ghetto. I applied to school and I got in, and I'm still in the program, of course. I felt like I was finally getting in the groove of my career while on the trajectory of almost becoming a doctor. Like, I went about friendships differently. I was content with my life at the time. Like the person that I was dating, I thought that they were great. Thought I had like a good like group of friends, which I still am friends with most of those people. What happened was that I lost my job. I quit my job because I have never been through so much stress, and it wasn't even just about the job itself, it's just the way that people were treating me at work, and I'll get into that a whole nother day. Right now I can't talk about it because of legality issues, so I can't really talk about it in depth. I had never experienced that in my life, and it put me through a lot of psychological stress, and classes got really intense. I'm in an accelerated program, so classes got really intense. And then I said, before I lose it on these people, I have to quit. I quit my job and I flew to Paris. That's the second time I've done that. The first time I quit my job, I went to Cabo. No, I went to Tulum. Yeah. So I was in a bikini overlooking Mexico, and I was like, wow, this is what life is about. This is what life is about. And then, I mean, the same thing, like I quit my job, and then a few days later, I went to Paris. And I was by the Eiffel Tower. Like, yes, this is what life is about. Once you go on vacation, of course, you're having fun on vacation, but you gotta come back to reality. You gotta come back home, baby. We had another job lined up. Like, I'm adventurous. I might take risks, but I'm not stupid. Then one random day, they laid me off, and I was just like, what? There was no reason why they laid me off. It's nothing that I did. I hadn't even been working there that long, but they laid me off. So that was really hard to go through. So the rest of that year felt really dark. Same day that I got laid off, A family friend of mine, she was like, I'm so sorry that happened, you know. She was trying to give me words of encouragement, but honestly, like, when you're in the midst of it, if you can't give me no job by tomorrow, like, honestly, there's nothing that you could say that makes me feel better. She was like, well, why don't you come to the mosque with me? And I was like, I don't know about that, because that was like her second or third time inviting me, and I was just like, girl. The other times, like, I had already told her I can't go because I have work on Fridays. And she's like, oh, okay, you know, no big deal. And then that Friday, I had, you know, lost my job in the morning, and I was just like,
Cause it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got shit to do.
Honestly, I felt like I was just so lost about where to go next, because it just made, like, I had mapped out like my whole like game plan on how to get to where I want to be. I lost my job. I had to cut things off with the person that I thought I could trust with, you know, that I was dating. I constantly felt like I was isolated and alone. Well, I can't do anything right now, so might as well. So I went with her to the mosque, and it was nice. Was I ready to just up and transform right there? Like, no. I went back to my life. The message that was given was great. I remember exactly, you know, what the message was about, and ironically, they were talking about Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, which Isa is Jesus. And he was talking about Jesus and Mary, and I just thought it was interesting because I was ignorant to the fact that Jesus was so respected in Islam. I thought it was really interesting. The Imam was also talking about, like, when you go through hardship, you have to lean towards God. You know, sometimes when we go through hardship, we might, you know, go lean on the ex, or go lean on drugs, or go lean on like other types of validation that will temporarily make us feel good. And he was so right, because I felt like for a long time I was unconsciously leaning on things to temporarily make me feel good, or like in the moment, but I didn't necessarily fully feel good about those things, and I was suppressing a lot. And honestly, we don't talk about it enough how some of us escape through our job. We feel better because we're doing great in our job, or we're doing great at school, or we have someone by our side, and we think that we are just like knocking it out of the park, because in society, like, that's what you're supposed to do. You're doing a good job, like, look at you. And that's what it felt like. And then when I lost all of that all at once, it really kind of really makes you internally reflect. And I got tired of leaning on the same things, because these things that I kept trying to go back to, or these situations that I kept trying to go back to, or these people that I kept trying to go back to, was not fulfilling me. People would ask me out on dates. I could not go. I'm like, I don't even want to get dressed. People would ask me to come out, and I'm like, girl, I don't want to go. I knew, like, with me being in mental health, I knew that if I was in such a place that I was really vulnerable to, like, what am I gonna do? Keep numbing myself over and over again? It's just not gonna work. And I was lost because I had nothing to lean on. In the midst of all this, the same family friend that invited me to the mosque, she would check up on me. She would check up on me, and she was like, how are you doing? Girl, how do you think I'm doing? I am sad. She got me to working out again, so we would go like run in the mountains and stuff. And I do not like running. I used to run for punishment. Why would I run for fun? But it just felt good to constantly like watch the sun come up and run in the cold, let the cold air hit your face. It felt like a rush. She would be like, I made you something, come over. And I'm like, well, I don't feel like cooking, so I guess. So I come over. And she would ask me, so, you know, what do you think about the mosque? I was like, well, you know, I like it. Everybody, the community is really nice. You know, she would explain things to me. Every time we went for Juma, which is Friday prayer, she would translate what the imam was saying. And that really helped me. The first time that I heard the call to prayer, I thought it was beautiful. It was the women and the children in the back, and the children were just so happy, and they were playing, and like everybody just let the kids just be the kids. Like they weren't like, you know, you try to keep them down, keep them quiet just a little bit, but they were like, you know, playing with each other, chasing each other around the mosque. I saw how the women would come in and hug each other. I had never had so many hugs in my life. I am not a toucher. I'm not touchy. I do not touch people. And the fact that like I didn't even know these women, I didn't know any of these women, and they would hug me all the time, and I hadn't even converted yet. All in one space in a communal type of situation where we're all sitting down, crouched down, praying in the same direction, in the same, you know, saying the same prayer, on one accord, side by side, next to each other, all together praying to one God. I didn't want to feel awkward and out of the way, so I was praying with them, but I didn't know what I was saying. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what to do in between or what to say. I just kind of followed everybody else. And then, you know, I guess I started to go every Friday, honestly, because I had nothing else to do. I appreciate her for having the scarves, because I didn't have no scarves. I have maybe one, and she would wrap me up every single time, and I'd be like, it's kind of cute. I like this. But then I would take it right off after I left Juma, and it felt weird. Not gonna lie, it started to feel weird after a while. It started to feel weird, and I felt like Hannah Montana. And I was like, huh. I noticed when I put this thing on, I feel way more respected. And when I take this thing off, it just feels like just flies, gnats, bugs. Oh, and I'm referring to men. Before I even converted, I started experimenting with different scarves. I got invited to a gala, and any excuse for me to dress up and get cute, I just wanted to go. And honestly, I wanted to see how they dressed up too. When they came to Step, and I was just in love. I had never felt that beautiful being that covered before. I got encouraged to go to the New Muslims class, even though I still had not converted at that time. I ended up asking a lot of questions. I think I asked so many questions that the teacher that was, you know, teaching us about the Quran and about like Islam and like the 5 pillars and etc. He gave me 2 books called, I think it was called Jesus Led Me to Islam. As I got through the book, as I was listening to like scholarly lectures, you can go back and you can back it up. You can find facts. You can like not only find it in the Quran, but you can look at it in research. You can look at it in scientific research. You can look at it in through different types of psychological studies and see like why things are written the way that they were, science in the Quran. And what I thought was absolutely profound was the fact that there was things mentioned in the Quran, different types of wording in the Quran. One way is it's very straightforward, and then there's another way where more so metaphoric. And in that metaphoric type structure, it's so like complex that some people would not be able to understand what was being said until later on in life. For example, we didn't know anything about how the earth was not flat, and we didn't know that we didn't know anything past the earth. We didn't know anything about the other planets or the stars. We didn't know about the deep depths of the ocean and like how it's a whole nother world down there. It was already like that, those specific examples that I'm speaking of is already like spoken about in the Quran. And during a time that the Quran was revealed, they did not have the science to be able to go and back that up. The fact that this book has been preserved in its original form for such a long time, in its original language, that made so much sense to me, because now I'm like studying Arabic here and there to my best extent, but there are some words that I've noticed that are not translatable. Like as I study like language, I noticed that like even people that are like multilingual or bilingual, they won't be able to tell me certain things, tell me the translation of certain words, because there is no translation. It's like, okay, if there is truth in the Torah, in the Bible, in the Quran, it seems like everybody is right in some type of way. Also, with the American propaganda, I thought that the hijab would have been suppressive, that women had to hide themselves, that they had to cover themselves because of men, but it's not because of men. And it was revealed to me that it was obligatory by God, and it wasn't just to Muslim women. It was also obligatory towards Christian women. It's also obligatory towards Jewish women. And you can go back in the Torah, you can go back in the Bible, you can look at it in the Quran, and you can see that God has been saying this since the beginning of time. I realized, okay, if the Bible came after the Torah, then who am I to say that I have to discontinue, like just disregard like the Quran? If one, there's so many facts in the Quran, like I tried to look for contradictions. I really did. I'm being honest. I tried to look for contradictions in the Quran and I couldn't find them. I am someone that does research. Like I'm a doctoral student. I know how to do research. I know how to form a hypothesis and also gather research information that supports that hypothesis, and also gather research information that does not support the hypothesis. And from what I gathered, I could not find research that did not support the validity of the Quran. You can't just rely on one source, because if you're not opening your mind to being proven wrong, then you can't just go off of that. Conversations I was like, man, we are having the most spiritual talk with religious people. I have never experienced that. We're always talking straight religion with religious people. We've never gotten to the spirituality and the science behind it. Head covering and modesty is obligatory. Like Orthodox Christian women, there are women that wear the veil. And also another point is Mary herself, Jesus, peace be upon him, his mother wore the veil. Part of it is culture too. Mary was a very devoted person that would always pray, always really devoted to God, and that's why she was chosen to give birth to, baby Isa. After I have read the book, Jesus Led Me to Islam, I cried. I did, I cried, and because I was just like, wow, like, I didn't cry like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy. I was crying because I was like, bro, I do not feel like going through another like huge life transformation. So they're gonna think I'm crazy. I said, oh my God, my friends and my family, my coworkers, the random people on the street that see me every day, they're gonna think I'm crazy. And I was like, bro, but there's so much truth in this. I had to make a decision. I was like, okay, are you going to, now that you have studied this and you have learned that modesty is obligatory towards women, and you have not found, even though you've tried, you have not found any like contradictions, or like you've explored the contradictions, because I would find some and I would bring it back and ask these questions, and they would help me like guide that and give me a solid answer. And I was like, okay. I could not find a reason why I shouldn't accept it. I decided on my own. And after I read that book, after I closed it and I cried because I was like, I know this is what I have to do. And I do not want to do this, but I really think that this is one of the most mind-blowing things that I have ever come across in my life. And I feel like if I ignore this, I am ignoring the signs from God. I am ignoring that voice. I'm ignoring the sign from God that I asked for. I'm just going to take this step by step. And I decided to take my Shahada.